And welcome everybody to another episode of Grounded TV, where today we're going to be going over one of Trudeau's most recent announcements that happened yesterday. We didn't react to it yesterday, so I thought we'd do that today, kind of go over it, more about the school food lunch programs and other things. But my favorite part, as for all Trudeau announcements, is the reporter questions. When that happens, that's when we get the juicy information and the unscripted questions that they don't want to answer. So we're going to be watching this and getting to that shortly here. And after this, we got a bunch of other stuff we want to get into as well. Saul might be joining me today. I'm not sure as to exactly when, but I've got everything set up so he can just hop in seamlessly. So whenever that happens. But good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I guess it's later than we usually do the show. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in already, and we're going to get started right away.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Morton, principal of Aylesbury Public School, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Aylesbury Public School today for this announcement. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We are one of 262 schools at the Peel District School Board. Aylesbury is home to a rich and diverse community of over 1,000 students, families, and incredible staff. At Aylesbury, this can be seen both in the classroom where we celebrate academic success, as well as...
Good afternoon, everybody. And Drew Coover, I know what you mean, but we still got to listen to it just because it's hilarious. That's my number one motivation. And also, it's just good to be able to argue with people who disagree with you if you're paying attention to both sides of the story. Because even if you don't agree with the side, I think it's helpful just to listen to it. Because when it comes to arguing with like certain relatives I have, knowing all this stuff comes in so handy, and they don't look at me like I'm just some crazy crackpot flat earther anymore. You know, like they used to 4 years ago when certain things were happening.
Learning beyond the classroom, where students can be seen engaging in a variety of extra...
But good afternoon, Drew, Cryptomeria, and Rob, by the way. Yeah, snowstorm in Alberta, eh? Yeah, my region too, we got hit pretty hard. We got like a foot of snow, so it's a lot of fun.
Extracurricular activities, such as cooking, the arts, and our athletic program. We are glad to have everyone here today and excited for this announcement as Aylesbury Public School, the Peel District School Board, the Province of Ontario, and all of Canada will be able to benefit as we promote student success through inclusion, innovation, and empowerment. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Minister Kamal Khera.
Well, hello, everyone. Good morning. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Principal Morton. Before I begin, I want to take a moment just to thank Principal Morton and all the teachers and staff at Aylesbury Public School for all the work that you do day in and day out for our community. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to all the wonderful students that are behind us. A huge shout out to you.
Oh no, I didn't know that, Drew. No.
It's been a very busy, exciting day for this school, so I want to say thank you to all the teachers for making this happen. So wonderful, and glad to be joined here by my wonderful colleagues, of course, alongside our Prime Minister, my colleagues MP Ruby Sahota, Sania Sidhu, Maninder Sidhu, Shafqat Ali, alongside Minister Valdez and Minister Jana Suds. And of course, I want to acknowledge our provincial colleagues, Minister Parsa, Minister Dunlop, as well as Ms. Yetman, and of all the wonderful stakeholders that have joined us here for this very exciting announcement. Now, let me just say it's so wonderful to be here with all of you and to share some really exciting news for families and children right across our community and our country. Now, for those of you who don't know, Brampton West is one of the youngest communities in the country, full of young families, children, a community filled with big dreams and hopes. And this is a community that's growing, like the rest of our country. And we know how much our community benefits when we invest and deliver for families and children. Whether it is tax cuts we delivered for middle-class families, $10 a day early learning and childcare, or our Canada Dental Care program that is providing coverage to over 6,000 residents right here in Brampton West alone.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this dental care program, and Drew in our Chad here is also piping in about it as well, saying that he tried to do it as well, and it doesn't come across that it's not very accessible. Sorry, I just got a situation here. 1 second.
Or the Canada Child Benefit that is helping over 26,000 children in this community of Brampton West with payments that just went out this Monday. We know these are the investments that have and continue to truly transform our community. And it really is a testament to the importance of investing in and supporting the members of our communities. And that is why, of course, I think it's so fitting that we are here in our community of Brampton West to make another historic announcement that is going to deliver even more supports for families.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are like forced to be there and don't want to be on camera. But yeah, sorry, I had to ban that random troll that came in here. Autumn Christian, good afternoon, Autumn.
Children right here and across the country. And to tell you a little bit more about this extremely important announcement, it is now my pleasure to introduce someone who has championed these progressive policies from day one. Please give a warm Brampton welcome to our Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Oh. That's their feed, by the way.
What a pleasure to see you all today. What a treat for me always to be back in a classroom surrounded by teachers. All the leadership and teachers of the school here. Also, all the students
Are you a troll assist? I got no patience for that. You're gonna come in here and just start spamming random racial slurs because it goes up on the screen. You're gonna get kicked. It's actually in the rules in the chat. Or I guess it falls under stay respectful, I guess. I don't know. It's only my only line is like sexual stuff and racial slurs. Like you can say whatever the hell you want. I don't care if an F-bomb slips through or anything like that. That's fine. That's forgivable. As long as you're not just spamming F-bomb repeatedly. I don't care.
I got to see diligently developing their leadership capacities as they're sharing school food programs, their fellow students, and understanding how important it is to bring a positive difference into the world with everything you do every day. Speaking of positive differences in the world, Canadians are doing and stepping up that. We're therefore seeing interest rates come down, which is making a huge difference. We're seeing record amounts of foreign investment coming into Canada to create jobs and opportunity and boost our economy in very tangible ways. So there's lots of things that are really good news for the Canadian economy. But at the same time, Canadians are squeezed. Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, even as our economy is strong.
Yeah,
and that's
because of you, our economy's not strong. We're going to be getting into that too. We're going to be talking about the dollar after this as well. I got some stuff queued up for that because it's so funny how they're saying our economy is strong and all this stuff. And then you have CBC and Global, of all places, saying, no, the dollar is like the worst it's been like ever. Like it's bad.
Government, we've stepped up with concrete ways to support families as we bring down
someone who hates trolls just because they're trolls, I guess. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming.
Inflation. As we see interest rates come down, we've been able to deliver in a whole bunch of really concrete ways for people. What we've done on childcare, saving thousands of dollars a month to families right across the country at a time where costs were going up. Delivering dental care to over 1 million Canadians.
It was definitely a dad joke, Rob. I'll give you that.
On our way to 9 million Canadians, that takes off massive pressures on family budgets when they don't have to pay out of pocket for dental care anymore because they didn't have insurance. Moving forward on pharmacare, free insulin for people who need it. Free prescription contraceptives because everyone should be able to choose when and how to start a family. These are things that we've invested in to take pressures off Canadian families. But we know there's more to do. Canadians need even more of a break. And that's what we decided to do for 2 months starting in mid-December as we're taking the GST, HST, off of a whole bunch of really important items that tend to add up so quickly. And I know families are peering over their budgets, looking at what they can afford, making choices in the grocery stores.
Yeah, because of your poor leadership. Like I was having a conversation with a friend before stream, and we are talking like, and he was looking at Canadian history, the state of the dollar, and he was saying like, there's nobody who's been as bad as Trudeau. Like in the last 100 years, like no one has been this bad. Like he is the worst prime minister I think Canada has ever seen, at least in the last 100 years, we can say for sure.
that are very, very current in their minds. Well, this is about making sure that people can afford to give their kids and give their families the best possible options. We're taking the GST, HST off of groceries, all groceries, for 2 months starting in mid-December. We're taking the GST, HST off of restaurant visits, and that's takeout and fast food as well. We're taking it off kids' clothes and footwear. We're taking it off toys and Christmas trees for the holidays. We're taking it off things that tend to add up very, very quickly for families to give people that tax break, that break that they really, really need. On top of that, we're delivering a Working Canadians benefit as of April. That'll be $250 to everyone.
Yeah, do you guys know exactly what categories of groceries don't charge GST? I think I know. But I'm not 100%. It's produce doesn't, right? And then there's like, I think meat. I think it's just fresh stuff like produce, meat, and dairy. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Who worked last year but made less than $150,000. These are investments that are there to help people at a time where we are squeezed and as our economy is starting to really turn around in a positive way, to make sure that everyone can feel it, to make sure that people know that we are focused on them. But even as we do that,
The list is on the website. Okay, thanks,
we're
Drew.
stepping up today to deliver more school food right across the country with a huge agreement with Ontario that is going to set the bar for the rest of the country. It's really exciting because we made a commitment a number of months ago in our last budget that we were going to deliver school foods to 400,000 more kids right across the country.
Yeah, so all they're really implementing it on for this one he's talking about specifically, it's going to take place from December 14th to February 15th if they somehow unfreeze the house and it all goes through. It's going to be on prepared foods, including vegetable trays, pre-made meals, salads, and sandwiches. So like the deli value-added stuff. Restaurant meals, dine-in, takeout, or delivery, snacks, including chips, candy, and granola bars, like all stuff that's great for you, right? I know Drew has something to say about that probably. Beer, wine, cider, pre-mixed alcohol beverages below 7%. So I guess everything that's not hard liquor. Children's clothing, footwear, car seats, diapers, children's toys, board games, dolls, and video games are the examples. Books, print newspapers, and puzzles for all ages. So I guess that falls into the toys again. I don't know why print newspapers are categorized and all that. And Christmas trees. So that's the full deduction of, and that is Newfoundland has taken on the full package, and they've implemented all of that from December 14th to February 15th in Newfoundland. From what I understand, that's what they're doing. And this is what he keeps talking about and what they're trying to pass nationwide. But it's still going to be up to these provinces, right? Like they can push back. So we'll see what happens.
Working with provinces.
Even if it fully passes, but.
And territories directly. C'est exactement ce qu'on est en train de faire aujourd'hui. On a fait la promesse de 400 000 enfants à travers le pays qui allaient accéder à la nourriture scolaire de façon plus facile et plus régulière.
Yeah, it's all about garbage. They're trying to. I was talking to Saul about this. They're trying to like incentivize parties, but like when you're acting like this is gonna feed families like by giving them more craft dinner and chips. Like it's you know what I mean. Like it's just it sounds silly, right?
A deal that's going to deliver aux nourriture scolaire.
Yeah, I don't think
right here
if he
Ontario,
has his way, he won't let it through.
We've now reached a deal.
It's a huge deficit. It's a huge deficit, right? It's like pouring gasoline all over the inflationary fire in the name of helping people, right? He claims to be a firefighter, but he's just coming and lighting and pouring gasoline all over the fire.
Deliver healthy meals to 160,000 Ontario kids more over the coming year. This is a huge difference. We're talking about close to 10 million meals just for the rest of this school year, and obviously much more for the coming years as well. There we go.
Oh. He's like, there you go. I wonder if they had a big card that said applause, and that's when he's like waiting for them, like, guys, your cue card's up.
We know the impact. We can see it here at Aylesbury Public School. the impact that school foods has on kids and on the entire community. First of all, as a teacher, I remember well, when kids don't have full bellies, when they can't hear the teacher because of the grumbling in their tummy, when they're worried and low energy and not able to focus in class because they're hungry, we all suffer, not just them, but the future they're building and the future contributions to Canada that we know they want. That's why investing in school food
it's their feed again,
is
guys.
about being there for everyone. And it's not just for those vulnerable
It's a recording of a live stream on CPAC, and they're literally having these stutters.
kids, although there's always more support for them. It's for all kids, because more and more families, even if they have the means, are rushed in the
Yeah, what do you guys think about him going to Taylor Swift, eh? I thought it was like, I didn't think it's a big deal, but I thought the funniest part of it all was the cringy dance, like the dance he did. I can't find one without audio. So I can play it on stream later, but it'll have no audio just because of the music in the back. But yeah, it's pretty funny. I was like, it reminded me of when he was dancing to Espresso at that night market. Or I don't know, people just overlaid that song on that. It was all over TikTok. He was doing that weird jivey dance with the shoulders.
the morning, more people are trying to scramble to make sure their kids get enough good, healthy, nutritious food. This is there for everyone. It's to make sure that every kid has the opportunity. No stigmas, just support. That's a really important part of the program. The other really important part of the program that I've seen firsthand that schools are launching across the country is the fact that there's so much opportunity for student leadership. As students take handle of the program, they're the ones actually preparing lunches for their peers. They're the ones delivering the snacks. They're the ones being involved and understanding that making a difference in your community is one of the most satisfying things in the world. Knowing that you're there to help out, knowing that you're contributing the world for the better is an incredibly important thing to learn, that they get modeled all the time by amazing teachers, but they get to actually deliver support to their peers in a way that is transformative. And I do want to point out something, because there's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. When we put forward this National School Food Program in the House.
Yeah, if he did claim any expenses on that, it'll eventually become public. That's how we found out about the $200,000 dinner, right? Was because they had to all submit their receipts to get reimbursed, and all that has to be made public. And that's why we saw Jagmeet Singh, how much money he expensed out as well. And that was a lot of scrutiny compared to how much his party actually brings in, or how much his party actually has, right? And he's like spending how much money and just expensing a lot of it. It was like $600,000 or something crazy.
The response of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives,
expense to the Canadian taxpayers, sorry,
was, no, we're not supporting it because it's just more bureaucracy. Now, I know they read the bill before they voted against it, but the fact that they are misleading people about this is really, really frustrating. Because
he's misleading people about this. Like,
about $1 billion going to help kids right across the country and work with existing programs. There is zero bureaucracy created with this money. This is federal money that is going into schools, to provincial programs that will just increase the coverage, increase the amount of food for kids. So, it is inexplicable to many people why Pierre Poilievre, who keeps talking about understanding where Canadians are, doesn't want to actually solve any of the problems that Canadians are facing. He voted against dental care and tried to block senior.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? He's spoken against all these other things that would have been huge deficits, like the old age security, and a lot of other things happening. And then he goes and does this and acts like it's his idea. Like, if he had just said and give the NDP all the credit for this, like, it would have been used against him regardless. Like, it's a lose-lose situation for him. The only way he can come remotely close to winning is resigning at this point. Like, it's a lose-lose situation no matter what he does.
Seniors from being able to access.
And lose-lose for the Canadian citizen and him.
The dental support that has had such a huge impact across the country. He stood against the childcare expansions and the $10 a day that's made a huge difference on Canadians. And he's now standing against pharmacare and the National School Foods investment that is delivering tangible benefits. And it shows the bottom line that he doesn't actually want to solve the challenges people are facing. He just wants to amplify them and convince everyone that Canada's broken. Well, Well, when I see a school community like this one pulling together to deliver for each other, when I see all the advocates in this room have been fighting for greater opportunities for their kids, I see Canada at its best. I see Canadians at their best. This is what we're stepping up on, and to be able to say from the very get-go, the Ontario government was strong and enthusiastic about moving forward, about getting to this point and getting food, more food into schools and into kids' bellies as quickly as possible, is how Canada should work. Where different orders of government from different political parties can roll up their sleeves and deliver for Canadians. Not throw up their hands and say, oh, it's just all bad, it's all terrible, it's all broken.
He's not throwing up their hands. He's saying, look, you suck, Trudeau. We can fix these problems you've created or just mismanaged and neglected. That's what he's saying. Not that it's all broken and it's broken, that's it. Like, that's what, you know what I mean? Like, that's more like Jagmeet Singh.
That's not who Canadians are. That's not what we want to do. This is on top of so many of the other things we're doing. We recognize that Canadians are facing challenges right now, and that's why we've been stepping up. Stepping up.
This is them stepping up, guys.
With an increasing Canada Child benefit that puts hundreds of dollars a month in the pockets of families that need that support. Even the price on pollution we're putting forward, delivering a check of checks of $1,100 a year for a family of 4 in Ontario. That is more than they pay with the price on pollution. That Canada Carbon Rebate is an affordability.
Hello, the Grime family. It's funny, I've been rewatching Walking Dead recently in my spare time, and his name's Rick Grimes, so the Grime family just sounds pretty badass, honestly.
Measure. Helping out hardworking families at the same time as we're innovating and fighting climate change. There's so many different things that we are delivering for Canadians, and we are not backing down on being there to support people with the tax break over the holidays, with the working Canadians a rebate check, and with all the programs we've put there to help Canadians benefit from the fact that our economy is bouncing back stronger than ever. So it's an incredible...
It's not bouncing back stronger than ever. And we're going to be getting into that right after this. Like, he's full of crap. It's leaking out his ears. He's so full of it. Like, jeez.
Pleasure to be able to be with you all today. I'm looking forward to hearing from our other speakers. And I'll kick it off by asking Heidi Yetman, who is the president of the Canadian Teachers Federation, membership of which I was once proudly, and still, hope to coast on that a little while longer. Welcome up, Heidi. Great to see you here.
Where did that energy come from, eh? Yeah, we're going to skip past this lady.
Thank you very much. I'm a mother of 2 boys. I'm a teacher. I was a teacher for over 20 years.
Nothing against her, but we're here for the politicians. Oh, great.
And the government of Ontario for work.
Come on, CPAC.
Good morning, bon matin tout le monde. What an incredibly exciting day today is. I am so thrilled that today we are able to share that we are moving forward with the Government of Ontario to deliver. Over 160,000 kids will be able to access school food this school year. This is an incredible moment as we move forward in our journey of delivering school food across this country. And when I think about the work that we've been doing, I think about the volunteers, frankly, here in Ontario, in this school, across the country. I was speaking with a mom, Megan, last week at a school in Ottawa, John Young Elementary School. She's a mom of 3 boys, and she volunteers each and every morning in their school, helping to deliver their breakfast program. I think of Melinda, a teacher I spoke with recently, who shared with me that she keeps a drawer of granola bars available for kids who might be hungry, and I'm sure the teachers in the room can relate to that. I also think of the organizations, many of which are with us today, who have been doing tremendous work on the ground, supporting schools and supporting kids in trying to do more and ensure that kids have access to food at school. You know, we announced this, this program in the budget in the spring, $1 billion commitment to the kids of this country. And the federal Conservatives said it couldn't be done. They voted against it, as the Prime Minister has mentioned. They referred to it as bureaucracy. And I'll tell you, as we are here today celebrating, I have to say, when we can point to the 160,000 kids in this province that will get food this year in school, this is not bureaucracy, folks. This is rolling up our sleeves with great partners to make sure that kids are not at school hungry. It is making life more affordable for parents here in Ontario and across the country. And we'll continue to find ways to ensure that we're delivering for Canadians. We found a way to...
This is them delivering, guys. That's what I mean. It's like they always say, we're delivering. It's like, you're not delivering crap. That's why we're all mad. That's why we don't want you in office anymore. You're not delivering anything. You're delivering frustration and disappointment at this point.
Deliver affordable childcare through our national childcare program, where almost 1 million kids have been able to benefit from those investments. We found a way to deliver on dental care, where we've seen over 1 million Canadians be able to access that. Et aujourd'hui, nous continuerons à trouver des moyens de répondre aux besoins des Canadiens. But still we see the federal Conservatives not supporting this.
Oh my goodness.
And saying that they will cut this program if they were elected. Folks, this investment today, the impact of this on the kids behind me and kids across this province will be felt for decades to come.
You know how emotional it is for them to decide this? You notice that? It's all about, we feel this is the right thing to do. When they're putting morality above the economy, you know, there's an extent to that, right? When you go too overboard, you end up in this huge, giant deficit pit that we can't get out of. And doing stuff like this is just going to dig us deeper. Even if you want to, it's, you know, it's a band-aid solution that's going to bring on more long-term problems.
Les choses sont difficiles maintenant, et nous savons qu'il y a encore de travail.
It's not even about the fact that they're, you know, I know they're feeding kids and everything, like that's great. But the thing is that we don't have the money for it. We don't have any money. You're printing more money, more debt. If you stop doing that, maybe people can afford to give their kids lunch.
Through the National School Food Program, we're sharing the good news of today, whether that be through $10 daycare, or whether that be through the Canada Child Benefit, or whether that be the good news we delivered yesterday, a tax break for all Canadians, giving them a break with affording the essentials through the holidays, through the expensive winter season, or whether that be the Working Canadians benefit, money back into the pockets of Canadians with a $250 check for workers who earned less than $150,000 last year. We will keep creating these measures and enhancing programs to support Canadians. So folks, with these 3 first National School Food Agreements announced, we will feed or support about 183,000 more children this school year so far. And that's just 3 provinces. And we won't stop the momentum there. We hope that all other provinces and territories will join along with...
That's what I mean. We're only one of the biggest reserves of natural resources in the world here in Canada. And with the fact that we have a shortage of natural resources being like, you know, food, vegetables, produce, like, you know, we have a shortage of like, you know, lumber prices are astronomical, you know, like all these things. It's like, why are we in this situation right now?
With us at the pace that we aspire to ensure that teachers like Melinda don't need to worry about that granola bar drawer, that volunteers like Megan have the support that they need to be able to feed even more kids within that school, and most importantly, so that we get food into schools across this country so that kids can focus on being kids. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Minister Parsa.
The speech is back here. I know that Indigenous in the elementary.
Affordability. We're moving forward 2 months again in
addressing food insecurity. And one at night. Actually, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Okay, now we're getting into the reporter questions, the juicy part here.
2 minutes. Yes, doing well.
Good. Okay, so my first question is: Food Banks Canada reported a 90% increase in users between 2024 and 2019. They have said that they had like 2 million visits in March alone, and 1/3 of those visitors were children. So why should Canadians have confidence in this government's ability to ensure kids are getting fed and really addressing food insecurity?
Well, we've seen disruptions in the global economy, whether it's inflation, whether it's the pressures of recovering from the pandemic, or even the time through the pandemic, where Canadians were deeply impacted by so many different factors. That's why we stepped up on significant investments to support families, to support Canadians, to support kids right across the country. And why we're continuing to do that. For 2 months starting in mid-December, there'll be no GST on groceries. That's going to make a huge difference for family affordability. We're moving forward today with a concrete announcement on school foods that is going to not only put more food in kids' bellies so they can concentrate, so they can be better in school in their learning, but also it takes pressure off of grocery bills for families. We're talking about $800 in grocery savings for a family with 2 kids on average. These are things that are real in terms of delivering. We also know challenges with homelessness and insecurity are things we need to continue to step up on, which is why we've made such investments in working with provinces and municipalities to counter the challenges that are faced by the most vulnerable. We know there's more to do, but we're going to keep doing it. Okay. Ça fait plusieurs années que l'état du monde, des pressions, que ce soit l'inflation globale, que ce soit les dérangements et les perturbations dans la chaîne d'approvisionnement à l'international, même la guerre en Ukraine qui est venue affecter le prix des aliments et des denrées familles avec des soins dentaires, toutes les provinces.
They're also warning that it will create administrative headaches and confusion for smaller retailers. They're saying that a permanent tax relief would be far more ideal. So why not just do that, do what the NDP has called for, and permanently remove the GST on these items, and then maybe even go further and extend the GST cut to cell phone and internet bills and also home heating?
We know families are squeezed and they need a break right now, and that's why we're moving forward with a tax break that'll take the GST off of groceries, off of everyday items like kids' clothes and shoes, like visits to restaurant, takeouts, fast food, a of items that are going to make a huge difference for families that are facing higher costs. We also know that our economy is recovering and people are coming through the worst of the difficult times, partially because we've kept stepping up on programs that are directly helping Canadians, from dental care to pharmacare to this school food program today, to delivering more childcare spaces at $10 a day. These are all things we're doing to meet Canadians where they are, to support them through these challenges. And when you look at other parties, particularly the Conservatives, who've said they would cut all these programs that are helping Canadians, they even stand against school food programs.
Yeah, this is yesterday.
Which makes no sense unless you realize that the federal...
It's yesterday morning. It's just they do a recorded live stream. So even when they have interruptions like that, they just put up the raw unedited footage. So all that stuff, all those hiccups still get kept in there.
Conservatives are very much about amplifying people's anxieties and the problems they're facing, and not about actually solving them. We're in the business of rolling up our sleeves and solving things for Canadians. Doing it now.
Next question.
Ariel, si vous pouvez répondre en français aussi, s'il vous plaît. Some Atlantic governments say they were blindsided by your GST holiday. Will you compensate the provinces for lost revenue?
I think every provincial government across the country understands how important it is to be there for Canadians who are facing real pressures around the cost of living. That's what we're doing. That's why we're stepping up to support Canadians, and I'm expecting provinces who see the challenges that their citizens are facing to realize that this is a way they can be there for people as they face the challenges of the next few months. Je sais que les provinces, à travers le parliamentarians were elected.
On the House.
Que le gouvernement, et je suis très optimiste que les différentes façons.
I follow up. For 2 months, your government has been unable to pass legislation. Have you given up on the House? What are you willing to do to end the logjam?
Well, you know, it is really important for Canadians to understand that parliamentarians were elected to support people across the country, to make the investments, to make create the programs that are there to help Canadians at times of difficulty. And the fact that the Conservatives have totally frozen the way the House is working, totally bogged down, preventing us from being able to actually pass legislation that is there to support Canadians, sort of proves the point I was making earlier, that federal Conservatives care only about showing the problems people are facing and amplifying those, but not actually providing any help for Canadians. They want to illustrate that Canada is broken by breaking it for Canadians, by preventing us to solve the challenges people are facing.
They're going to break Canada because he hasn't done that yet, guys.
So we're going to stay focused on delivering these things. But I will point out, not just this tax break for the next 2 months that all Canadians are going to get, and the $250 check for Canadians who worked last year, which is going to make a big difference, and we need to pass that through the House. There's legislation that is going to deliver health benefits for refugees and asylum seekers that is not passing through the House. And we know Conservatives from under Stephen Harper, when Pierre Poilievre was last in government, slashed health benefits for those vulnerable asylum seekers and put at risk not just their health, but the health of all Canadians with that. That's what we need to pass in the House. We need to pass legislation around dental care to deliver to even more Canadians the supports they need. Part of the school foods legislation is needing to be passed in the upcoming legislative session. So it's not just the Conservatives that have decided they want to block everything. It boggles the mind that the NDP is crossing its arms and saying, no, we shouldn't be passing measures on school foods. We don't need to pass measures on health benefits for refugees. We don't need to be passing measures that are going to support the most vulnerable. That's not who the NDP is supposed to be. So I'm really calling on the opposition parties to not let Conservatives continue to prove that Parliament is broken, and instead get busy delivering concretely for Canadians.
That's the thing, right? Is like if we weren't watching this, we wouldn't see how much of a like just floundering imbecile he is right now, and not to mention how extreme his rhetoric's getting. Like, just like, they're breaking Canada, they're destroying everything, the NDP. It's like, dude, just chill out, like, just resign. Like, why are you clutching so hard onto this?
Next question.
Rihanna Lim, Canadian Press. Why are you only giving the $250 checks to working Canadians and not others like retirees or people with disabilities?
Over the past number of years, we have been extraordinarily present in helping the most vulnerable Canadians, whether it's by increasing the old age security for older seniors by 10% to recognize the costs they're facing, whether it's there to invest in increases to the Canada Child Benefit to help families with young kids, significant investments in childcare that's taking a huge pressure off families. But as I travel across the country, I do regularly hear from working Canadians who are having trouble making ends meet, but saying, look, I don't have kids, I'm not a senior yet, and I'm facing challenges. You know, I'm lucky in many aspects.
Yeah, because of you dumbass.
In my life, but where are you going to see the work that I've done? And I realized that Canada made it through the pandemic because Canadians rolled up their sleeves and leaned in and were there for each other. We were able to bring down inflation and start to solve the housing crisis because Canadians worked hard to get us through this. So we're not reducing any of the other programs we're delivering to the most vulnerable, but recognizing hardworking Canadians, hardworking middle-class Canadians are making less than $150,000 last year, with a thank you and support for the things that they need to continue to do to keep our economy strong, to build a strong future. It's about seeing Canadians as the hardworking nation builders they are and giving them that support that they need at this time of challenge.
Next question.
Pleasant afternoon. This is Hamreen Kaur from Punjab TV. The recent announcement that was made on GST and HST has brought smile to the faces of the Canadians. However, there are decades and decades of long studies and researches that have shown that when a short-term tax redemption or reduction is done to any of the economy, it does not help economy to a very large scale, you know. It doesn't boom up the economy much. It is getting really hard for the Canadians to keep food on the table. The grocery prices are rising up like anything. Healthy meals for kids is a great initiative, no doubt. But we all know it all starts with the family. So when the families are not able to afford and keep food on the table, they are angered, they are frustrated, they are agitated, and somewhere we know it is all going to affect on the mental health of the kids as well. So even if the school is providing such great meals for the kids, but then if the family is not in that situation, obviously it helps to hamper the growth and development of a child. So what's your plan on that?
Sorry, which part of what you were asking about is the question? What's your question?
So I mean to say that even though you have made healthy meals for the kids, this great initiative, however, what plan do you do for what does your government plan to do for the families so that they can afford good meals, because the grocery prices are also going up?
Well, the most important thing that we needed to do to help families is bring down inflation. And we were able to do that.
Of all things to say, what do you think this is going to do? Like, God.
We brought down inflation, and we're seeing interest rates come down as well, which is making a huge difference for people and for families. That's why we're continuing to deliver the measures that are supporting people, whether it's childcare, whether it's dental care, whether it's investments in this school food program. And I take a little bit of issue with what you said about what the economy needs. What the economy needs is for people to be able to afford their groceries.
Yeah, so step down. Like, remove the carbon tax. Why are we paying like 37% more for our groceries than the neighboring states that live right over the border? They're like, people who live like not even 100 kilometers away from Canadian citizens are paying like something like 37% less just to survive. So why are we paying so much more? It's because of all the taxes this moron implements on all the production in this country, on farming, on natural resource production, all of it. It's all taxed. What does the carbon tax apply to? Everything. Trucking, food, agriculture, just everything. There's nothing you can't think of the carbon tax doesn't apply to. Carbon is the gas of life. You know, it's emitted by everything. It's emitted by livestock, by, you know, by burning fossil fuels, like forest fires. There's so much that contribute to it. The fact that you're going to reduce to zero emissions is ridiculous. First off, I'm going to say that it's not possible. You can reduce, but you're not going to get to zero. You're not going to get to this net zero that everyone talks about. It's like when he talks about plateauing inflation. It's like, just to say inflation has slowed down doesn't mean that's a victory. It hasn't reversed. Since when is this an okay thing to accept? You know what I mean? Like, it's just wild to me. Like, just the lack of how far his head up where the sun doesn't shine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm trying to say head up his ass, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know. Just this whole thing just really triggers me.
What the economy needs is people to be able to be optimistic about the future we're building with good jobs, good opportunities for their kids. We're focused on Canadians. I'll let the bankers worry about the economy. We're focused on building opportunities for kids in a fundamental way, being there to support families, because an economy works when families are confident about the future. That's why we continue to grow the economy from the bottom up, from the middle out, while Pierre Poilievre talks about cutting supports for families, cutting the investments in the future that Canadians are going to be relying on.
Next question.
Nathaniel Dove, Global News. Prime Minister, in the past few years, the CBSA has identified 16 senior members of the Iranian regime living here in Canada, violating your government's sanctions you put in place after Masa Amini's death. So far, though, only one has been deported. Why is that, and why won't your government release their names?
We have taken significant measures to crack down on the murderous Iranian regime's impact in Canada and to hold it to account. We move forward some of the strongest measures available to Canada in our under our immigration laws.
Yeah, so this announcement's almost over. There's like 10 minutes of questions left. Then we're going to be getting into some news roll, kind of going against everything he's saying, like about our dollar. And it's actually one video from CBC I thought was hilarious. They put this out because it doesn't make him look good. It makes our government look bad. Because it's basically just the whole video just basically says it's mismanagement, right? So anyways, we're going to get into that after this.
Measures that only were brought forward around the Rwandan genocide and Bosnia to make sure that a number of Iranians who are involved in some of the terrible actions of this government do not ever be able to seek asylum or seek.
And yeah, I don't know what's going on with the chat. I'm having some issues with my chat overlay, which is preventing me. I'm missing a lot of messages, I think. I'm scrolling up. There's a lot I didn't read. So apologize about that, guys. I don't understand what the exact cause is, but I'll try and fix it.
Refuge in Canada. On top of that, we've listed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity under our criminal code. We significantly their ability to have an impact on Canada. We know there is much more to do, and I can assure you that law enforcement officials and immigration officials and CBSA continue to step up to make sure that we're protecting Canadians and not harboring people who are out there to destabilize our economy and our country and hurt Canadian families.
Well, you're destabilizing our economy and our country, dumbass.
Sir, I didn't quite hear an answer about why only one has been deported yet, respectfully. Why is it so low?
The law enforcement and judicial system is doing its work. Canadians have confidence in that.
Taranjit from Red FM. Recently, a mainstream media reported that a Canadian security agency claimed Prime Minister Modi and the Foreign Affairs Minister are aware of the attacks on Canadian citizens. However, the National Security Agency stated that it has no evidence to support his allegation. Will your government investigate how an agency can make such a claim and how a mainstream media outlet can publish this story without any evidence?
Well, first of all, we have seen, unfortunately,
say what you want about Punjab TV, but that was a pretty good question.
That criminal leaks, criminals leaking top secret information to the media has consistently gotten those stories wrong. That's why we had a national inquiry into foreign interference that has highlighted that the criminals leaking information to media outlets are unreliable on top of being criminal. In terms of the issue, let me just repeat that my primary job as a Canadian leader is to keep Canadians safe. And everything we have done.
Everything he does is for your safety. Watch.
Over the past years in multiple difficult situations is to put the emphasis on keeping Canadians safe here at home across the country and making sure we're standing up for the rule of law. We will always do that.
Next question.
Catherine Brulotte, Radio-Canada. Je voudrais parler de la cible de 2% des dépenses militaires de l'OTAN. Vous pensez pouvoir l'atteindre d'ici 2032? Avez-vous des pressions du
Ce qu'elle a été, il y a un plan pour promouvoir significantly invested. We put forward first a plan on defense spending that increased by 70%, our defense spending, and then a more recent plan that is doubling our defense spending into the future. We're going to hit that 2% in the coming years. And we're going to do it in ways that are right for Canada and for Canadians as we defend our territory, but also as we protect and promote the rules and the values that keep Canadians safe all around the world, along with our partners.
The question that the students that are very patient behind you want to know, and my colleagues too, would be if you are going to the Rogers Centre when in Toronto, but that can't be my question. Le représentant
And he did go.
républicain Mike Turner a qualifié l'attitude.
Nous sommes un pays qui prenne nos propres décisions.
I think that's about it for the announcement.
share and more than our share, because Canadians always step up significantly when it comes to global challenges and conflicts.
Perfect. Hey, this is B from Y Media. Recently at the G20 summit, we did see a glimpse of you, President Biden, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi together. I wanted to know, was there any discussions that took place at that time, or was there a one-on-one sit-down? And how are Canada and India relations right now, and what is the government doing to work on them?
I had an excellent one-on-one sit-down with President Biden where we talked about
yeah, there's like 2 minutes left, guys. Like, this is important, right? Because he's still the prime minister. Can't just tune him out.
Range of issues, including a number of challenging international issues. We will continue to work with the United States. We'll continue to work with all partners around the world to defend the rule of law, to keep people safe, and to make sure that we're growing prosperity for everyone in all the right ways.
Thank you, Prime Minister. That concludes today's press conference.
Merci beaucoup, tout le monde.
Okay, now, see, it's done, guys. See, we did it. No, but I think it's just important to make sure we're still paying attention to what's going on with this side, right? Just to make sure we are up to speed, and you can argue at the dinner table if people don't agree with you. Like, that's the thing, right? If you're tuning out one side of the argument, you're going to end up just being more susceptible to being misled. I don't think that half of what is said on these news organizations or half of what Trudeau says is true. The thing is you can separate the fact from opinion, right? There are some facts, but what they do is they take a fact and they dilute it with this opinion piece, right? So it ends up being this like piece of propaganda. I feel like that's how you get to the propaganda, at least in our nation. It's not quite like, you know, North Korean propaganda where they're just making things up, right? Where this is how our propaganda system works, right? Is they take something that's real and they amplify it in a certain way, right? So it's important just to go through it all, and you can see the real nugget of reality through it all, and then you can see their projection and delusion, right? And I think that's kind of why I still will watch all that stuff. Anytime Trudeau makes an announcement, Freeland, anyone who's a major player, I will watch their announcement regardless what it is, off stream or on stream. Basically, this whole stream, I'm just putting what I would normally consume into a playlist and then watching it with you guys, right? And going over it. Today kind of sucks for, I know the chat's been going off. I just opened up the chat, I could see it, but my overlay is not working very well. So I was missing a lot of messages. But I saw you guys towards the end not being super happy with Trudeau, but it is what it is. Like, you know, the thing is like, that's what we're going to be doing here, unfortunately. That's why I give you guys heads up, like, hey, after this, we're going to be doing this. After this, we're going to be doing that. So if you want to tune out, then come back in after it's over. More than welcome to. It's just trying to build like a library of information as well as we go through this with each episode. And so far, I looking back at things, I'm like, wow, you could literally go back like 3 months and figure out, you can follow the whole news cycle in Canada through our channel almost. And I think that's kind of important why we watch those announcements. Things that you might not want to hear, you still need to hear, in my opinion. And that's one thing what me and Saul always agree on, regardless of our political stances. And that's how this show came to be and why we called it Grounded TV. And yeah, I guess that's the end of my spiel there.
Relief and independent business. Well, Halifax International. Hello, I'm Andrew Thompson with you tonight. Michael Serapio is on assignment in Halifax, and you'll hear from him coming up.
Thanks, James.
We begin with more on the federal plan for a GST holiday and for a $250 payment to nearly 19 million Canadians. The Prime Minister is defending the moves today. That includes a question.
No, don't feel bad. No, it's fine. It's honestly, I don't even know where that came from. It's just, it's been a lot of conversations. I was talking about this with Saul because we've been trying to pinpoint what our mission is, so to speak, right? Because first it was like, we're trying to go to the truth, or it's not really the truth that we're trying to chase. It's more of, what we're trying to chase is look at both sides of the story and make up your own mind. I guess that's what it comes down to. That's why, that's kind of the idea. And I guess me and Saul were able to kind of agree on that the other day. But we're still probably going to have more conversations, and that concept will probably continue to evolve as time goes on.
Question about some provinces worried they'll have a shortfall in tax revenue.
I think every provincial government across the country understands how important it is to be there for Canadians who are facing.
And this is important too, because now if we were to watch something, if that was a Polyev announcement and we saw Pierre talk for 45 minutes and then they clip 30 seconds of him trying to make him look unhinged, you would all know, hey, I watched that whole speech. I know exactly what happened. They're just being deceptive.
Real pressures around the cost of living. That's what we're doing. That's why we're stepping up to support Canadians, and I'm expecting provinces who see the challenges that their citizens are facing to realize that this is a way they can be there for people as they face the challenges of the next few months.
The province of Ontario is already planning a $200 rebate next year, and the Premier says he's happy with any government that wants to put more money in people's pockets. Here's Doug Ford reacting to the federal move.
I'm glad they took our lead on that. I think more governments should do that. Rather than gouge the taxpayers.
All right, let's talk about the GST holiday and the $250 check and more with our Friday panel of journalists covering Parliament Hill. We have
join base. Oh yeah, no, I'd be up for that. No, thanks actually, Mark, for giving that feedback. Honestly, it's all the defaults. I just defaulted everything. I had no idea how to set it up because I'm a complete amateur. So that's actually a good point.
Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail. Tonda McCharles, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. And Joel-Denis Bellavance, Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse. So we have the Prime Minister today, again, defending this new plan for a GST holiday and for these $250 checks, saying we're not backing down when it comes to supporting Canadians. On the other hand, we have other parties calling it a vote-buying scheme. We have it being called a temporary tax trick. So, Tonda, let me start with you. When we add it all up, what do you think the political impact is going to be beyond the actual financial impact for Canadians?
I mean, I think that remains to be seen. It may be too far out from an election to actually have an impact. Will it be visible to Canadians? Does it make that much of a difference for many who are most in need? I don't know. But I think it's many things politically. It's an attempt to steal
Sorry, my kid was asking me about her snowsuit.
NDP's thunder and the Conservatives, who have in the past proposed just such a holiday on GST. It's an attempt to show Canadians that they care about cost of living issues, and whether or not they manage to stick handle it through right now. In any event.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. It's per person. No, yeah, my kid was asking about her snowsuit. That's why I was talking with no volume earlier.
It's still going to be something that they can poke their opponents with. You know, it frames them.
Yeah, I think it's per individual. So I believe if you're a married couple, I don't think it's per child. I think it's per tax-paying individual. So it's like a supplement to the April GST payout. I believe it's going to come in with your, if you were to get a GST payout. I think the biggest thing is this is just going to give, like, you know, like a lot of people who are over the threshold who normally wouldn't get one are going to get this 250 between the 100 and 150 threshold, I believe. But I don't know where you really, how much you have to make to stop getting GST. I know I get GST, but it's like, it's not much.
As the fighters for Canadians whenever a vote comes. But again, I don't know that that will hold. And I think, though, it also tells us a little bit, well, something interesting I found is that this is not as progressive a measure as this government has contended to be in the past, nor for the NDP, actually. The fact that the NDP and the Liberals are now sort of all in on taxes, you know, kind of unlike the way they've been portrayed in the past, as a way to spread money largesse all around and not either make it a measure that's means.
That's a good question, Rob. I don't know.
Tested or helping the most poor among us, and taking a big chunk of change, $6 billion, that could go into any of the cares, you know, pharmacare, healthcare, dental care, child care, long-term care, these things, these big programs that those two parties, progressive parties, stood for. That tells me that they're moving off, and they are sort of positioning themselves kind of out-populisting the Conservatives, who are a populist party.
Right. And we've heard others comments saying, look, this money could go to defense, it could go to economic growth, productivity.
It could go to many things.
JD, how do you see how this announcement got rolled out?
Well, it looked like an economic statement, an economic update from the Prime Minister and all that, because it's got fiscal measures that are very important, that will cost a lot of money to the federal treasury. And we still don't have numbers about the actual deficit of last year, the final numbers, and the projected deficit of next year. So this, you know, it looks good now, but I think it may cause some problems later because, as you know, as you mentioned, we've got difficult choices to make in the future in terms of defense spending, border security, making sure that we are in sync with what Washington will want us to do so that we are still, considered a solid ally. And so it may limit the choices we make in the future because $6 billion in what? 2 to 3 months? That's a lot of money.
2 months.
Yeah, and we're hearing criticism today from another American member of Congress about Canada and its spending and its NATO contributions. So, Bob, let me turn to you on this because I want to talk about how this goes against the Conservative message on taxes, on the cost of living. Do you think it's going to be an effective move for the Liberals to try and bridge some of that gap they're facing when it comes to affordability?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, this is a very expensive gimmick by a government in electoral deficit that doesn't give a hoot about the fiscal deficit. Because when you had the Conservatives, when they brought in the promise to take the GST off of new homes, they actually said it was going to cost $8 billion, and here's where we're going to make up the money. And they haven't done this with this at all. And I also think it's an extremely unfair gimmick that they put forward. The $250 that we can get in the spring, a family making $300,000 can get that money. That's not, to me, right. Shouldn't this be going to people who are suffering the most with high inflation? The same thing with the GST. And we have a really effective GST rebate program for low-income families. They get quarterly payments to help them offset the cost of the GST and food and clothing and issues like that. Why wouldn't that be targeted to those people? Because they are really the people who are in need, not people who are making $150,000 or more a year. So that's why it's all electoral motivated. They don't really care about poor people. Clearly.
See how based this guy is on CPAC of all places? Like, I like this guy, honestly.
With this kind of a measure that they're putting forward, they're looking at a larger voting bloc. And I don't even know if that's going to work because...
Yeah, it's a really good point, Mark. And I actually just implemented it. I have a feeling Saul will have no problem with it at all. It just has to be approved. So whenever that becomes available, it's free. It's an additional level. So I've just labeled it supporter for 99 cents a month. And then if you want to be the old tier, I just renamed to grounded TV enjoyer.
People may be so fed up with Trudeau, they'll say, give me the money, but I'm still not voting for you.
Well, the timing is interesting, Todd. 23 days, I think, between this announcement and when the GST holiday would start to get a bill through. So it is interesting how everything is really compressed. A 2-month holiday. This bill has to get through Parliament. And we are, of course, in that dispute, the Conservatives, the ongoing privilege debate and parliamentary business, at least government business, at a standstill.
Well, at the time we're having this conversation right now, we don't know exactly what procedural plan is in place to move this through the House or to break the bigger logjam. The NDP would have us believe that there's a way to suspend the logjam while they support this measure alone. The Liberals, of course, want the logjam broken, and they want to be able to bring in their fiscal economic statement, and they want to be able to table the votes, put the votes before Parliament to move money along to pay for some $21 billion in other programming that they need money for. And I don't see yet how that logjam gets broken. But yeah, they're coming down to a crunch. But right now, they're all holding their cards pretty close to their vest.
There's also some regional inequality in this measure because if the taxes is harmonized, the consumption taxes is harmonized, you get 13 or 14%. If it's not harmonized, like in Quebec, you get only 5% of GST. And the Minister of Finance of Quebec introduced an economic statement yesterday. It was, upswing by the federal announcement, and he said this was a gimmick. He said unless Ottawa compensates us to offer the same thing, we won't do it. So it's going to be, I think, the source of many controversy to come.
Okay, I want to stay on the issue of Parliament here because we did hear the House Speaker yesterday kind of weigh in on the standoff that's going on, the fact that government business isn't getting through and the fact that there is government spending, the supplementary estimates that need to be voted on dealt with by December 10th, and he's essentially nudging the parties to find a way out of this impasse. Bob, do you think there is a way
That's what this is. This is a desperate attempt to get out of this roadblock. That's all it is. It's not about helping people.
The impasse at this point before Christmas, where there's going to be some kind of resolution to what has really become just a complete blocking.
Yeah, and let's just remember what this filibuster is all about. It's the government refusing to provide over all the documents about a green slush fund that could mean...
Yeah, you know, see how base this guy is?
Tens of millions of dollars of money that may have gone to people that shouldn't have got that money, and Parliament wants that the government to provide those documents unredacted, and they won't do so. The Speaker, I was wondering, and I don't know enough about parliamentary procedure, so I was wondering if the Speaker was signaling that he may try to do something to end the impasse himself, which would be explosive because he's already lost control of the House of Commons. I mean, nobody respects this guy. He's the worst speaker I've seen since John Bosley back in 1986 when Mulroney was around. They had to end up getting rid of him because he wasn't able to have respect or control the House. So
yeah, that's good. He can't control the House. Like Fergus cannot control the House at all. Like, and when he does try to, it comes off as just incredibly partisan and one-sided.
I don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, none of us do, because we don't know whether the NDP will change their mind or not change their mind. That looks like the only solution unless the Speaker can somehow intervene. And again, I don't know enough about parliamentary procedure to know whether he can do it.
Okay, well, one thing we do know is that we are down a minister.
That's actually a really good point, Mark. Right there, actually. Yeah, and this is the thing, right? We'll see what happens. Like, they can't do anything just yet.
In the federal cabinet, Randy Boissonneau stepping away this week, saying he's going to work to clear the allegations against him. Tonda, how does that departure affect the possibility of what we're thinking in terms of a cabinet shuffle?
Well, it just piles on the reasons for a cabinet shuffle, doesn't it? But I'm told it's not imminent. No. So maybe do they want to sort of give a little bit of breathing room in between now and an inauguration? We thought it was going to happen after the U.S. election, but Trump is rolling out his nominees. I don't think it matters that much, you know, in terms of who. None of these people have direct relationships and contacts with any of the people Trump is naming. So I guess the reasons for the cabinet shuffle are obvious. We have 4 ministers not running again. We have 2 who have left since, and 2 other ministers who are doubled up doing double duty with big portfolios. Transport and Treasury Board for Anita Anand is huge, and Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor has Veterans Affairs, now Employment, and Official Languages. So huge files. They have to be spread out, and I would imagine that there's a lot in the Liberal caucus who'd like it sooner than later. But guess what? If he does a cabinet shuffle and picks some of the people who might otherwise criticize him,
if he does another cabinet shuffle, like, come on. Like, it's so bad.
The fire under those who don't get the job, right? And so expect more criticism to become more vocal about the Prime Minister's ability to stay on.
And one more reason to have a cabinet shuffle is that Alberta, which is a key province in this federation, has no voice now in Canada with the departure of Randy Boissonneau. So
they would have argued they never had a voice.
Probably, but still, I mean, it just shows it in my mind, because I heard the same information as Tonda. It was supposed to be after the U.S. election. Now it postponed in December. Now I'm hearing also January. There is a lack of urgency about what Canada and the federal government, as a federal government, should do to be prepared for the arrival of Donald Trump in Washington. We're not seeing anything. And guess what Mr. Doug Ford is doing? He's filling the void by saying we should kick out Mexico out of the free trade deal. So there you go. No urgency here. That's what you get.
All right, we'll have to leave it there for this week at least. Thanks to all 3 of you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Anyways, yeah, we're going to get off this video now. I'd just like to play that part, and then we're going to stay on topic here. They're going to get into some other topics.
Minister and Premier of Ontario happily announcing the country's most populous province is now on board with the National Food Program. Now, under the 3-year agreement, Ontario will get $108 million in federal funds. That money will help feed an additional 160,000 kids. Ontario is the 3rd province to reach a deal with Ottawa. Newfoundland and Labrador and Manitoba already have their own deals. Now, that may have been today's news, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was still facing questions about his proposed tax holiday plan that was announced yesterday, especially around the cost. The plan comes with a $6.3 billion price tag, and here's how it all breaks down. The 2-month GST holiday will cost the government $1.6 billion. $250 checks to every worker who made less than $150,000 in 2023. Well, that will cost $4.7 billion.
I'll let the bankers
That's what I mean, right? It's like, that's how much, like, let's go back to those numbers here, okay? So, how is this going to help inflation? You know what I mean? How is this going to help the national debt? How is this going to help deficit? How is this really going to help people in the long run? Just think about it.
Cost $4.7 billion.
I'll let the bankers worry about the economy. We're focused on building.
We'll let the bankers worry about the economy. You're a huge player in the economy, you dumbass.
Opportunities for kids in a fundamental way, being there to support families, because an economy works when families are confident about the future. That's why we continue to grow the economy from the bottom up, from the middle out, while Pierre Poilievre talks about cutting supports for families, cutting the investments in the future that Canadians are going to be relying on.
And joining me now is Family, Children and Social Development Minister Jenna Sudds. Minister, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a great day.
It is, and I will ask you about today's Ontario School Food Program announcement in just a second. But first, I want to ask you about this week's major GST holiday announcement. What we had just heard from the Prime Minister in that clip said that your government is focused on Canadians and that he'll let bankers worry about the economy. It was in the context of what the government has done on affordability, but it really does make people feel like he's not considering Canada's economy as a whole. Is that how your government feels?
Of course, Canadians are always at the heart of all of the decisions that we are taking, recognizing that it has been expensive times that Canadians are.
This isn't even Phoebe that's the other one. That's what's her name? Not Jolie. So Suds, Jolie, and there's one other MP. I get them all mixed up all the time. I don't know why.
Living through. The measures that we announced yesterday, the HST holiday, as well as the Working Canadians benefit, are just two examples of how we're delivering relief for Canadians. Today's announcement, school food, is one more example of how we are centering Canadians in our decision making and recognizing the challenges that they're facing.
But with respect, Minister, he said it's up to bankers to worry about the economy. Is it not a core function of the government as well?
Yes! Thank you, CTV.
Again, I think everything we do, of course, has impacts. The impacts that I worry about on a day-to-day basis.
O'Connell, that's who it is, Autumn. Thank you. O'Connell is the one that looks like Phoebe from Friends. I think the most. Maybe this one. Jolie really doesn't. She just looks like her and O'Connell.
Of course, are how
moms
sense. And dads, families across this country are faring. And the actions that we are taking this week are really focused on ensuring families get.
Hey, Genghis Khan, I like that. What's up, Grounders? I like that. That's good.
Through the holidays, get the relief that they need this winter. As we know, there are many in this country who are still struggling as costs have escalated.
So I just want to be clear. Is your government worried about the economy or not? Or are you leaving it up to bankers?
Well, I would point to our continued progress in this country, seeing interest rates cut 4 times. And the cost of living and inflation now at 2%, the target rate. So I would suggest our fundamentals are strong, and we've seen incredible progress, particularly over this last year. And that's really encouraging. It encourages me. I think it encourages Canadians. But Canadians still aren't feeling the impact of that progress, which I think is why these decisions, being able to deliver relief for Canadians now is really important.
And I want to talk to you about the impact of those, because together, the measures that were announced yesterday would cost roughly $6.3 billion. Your government has a self-imposed target of a $40 billion deficit. That's one of the fiscal guardrails that Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, had set out there. So I think a lot of people are wondering, where are you getting all the money for this?
Yes! Thank you.
Well, I'll leave that. Obviously, we've got an incredible Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister at the helm. These decisions are obviously well informed. And these are decisions that I think are really timely. As I said earlier, heading into the winter season, of course, the holiday season, which is expensive for people across this country. And then, excited today as we move forward with the National School Food Program. Each one of these decisions and programs are, very much targeted, impactful, tangible relief for people here in Ontario and
I don't think it's tangible relief. Like, do you guys feel like it's tangible relief?
Across the country.
I just want to be clear, though. Would you call giving 47% of Canadians a $250 check targeted? Because that would seem like it's not very targeted. It's going to a wide swath of people in this country.
Oops.
So it is going to, the Working Canadians benefit is going to people across this country who last year made $150,000 or less. If you speak to these people, they identify with struggling. They identify with the rising cost of groceries and everything over the last year. These folks certainly have expressed some of these concerns. And I think it's really timely that we do have a targeted, I do think this is income targeted for workers benefit. We do lots of things for different folks in different circumstances. Of course, we have CPP and OAS to serve seniors, the disability benefit. There's a number of different programs to help people at different stages of their life. And I believe the Working Canadians benefit will deliver relief for folks who need it.
And the reason I asked this, Minister, is because back in May, the Prime Minister warned that if you send people more benefits, he said, quote, inflation goes up by exactly that amount. So what has changed in those 6 months to have such an about face on giving so much of these benefits to so many people?
Well, I would point to the economy, frankly. I would point to dropping or decreased interest rates. We've been leading in that regard amongst the G7. I would point to consistent decreases in inflation. Now, as I mentioned, being at 2%, which is the target of the Bank of Canada. These are strong economic fundamentals which enable us, frankly, to be able to move forward in a strong way, providing, again, targeted relief that is coming at a time when Canadians need it.
With respect, back in May, inflation was at 2.9%. And yes, it's at 2% now. And it was within that target back in May of the Bank of Canada, that sort of so-called sweet spot that the governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, likes to speak about. So really, it hasn't changed that much in those 6 months, has it?
Well, I think Canadians would likely agree with me that 0.9, almost a 1% decrease in inflation is real. I would also look to interest rates, which have also decreased over over that same time period, which for Canadians...
Terry, you ain't wrong, man.
renewing their mortgage, Canadians looking to get a mortgage is a big deal. So these two measures absolutely have had...
Genghis Tron, I identify as broke-ass poor. It's sad, but it's funny at the same time.
Had a big impact in this short amount of time that enable us to move forward. At the same time, I would point to the work that we've been able to accomplish moving forward since the budget on our commitment to move forward with the National School Food Program. This is what I'm here in Markham today focused on delivering food for kids. Our agreement with Ontario will see an additional 160,000 kids in Ontario this school year having access to food at school. 9.8 million additional meals available to kids here in Ontario at school. This is delivering for Canadians. This is meeting the moment, and this is what I'm very focused on today.
And I will get to the food program in just a second. I just want to ask you one last question on this, though. Well, a number of people are seeing yesterday's announcement as a vote-buying exercise. When you consider the fact that 26% of parents are waiting for daycare spaces, and I know that's something that you're very concerned about, 6 million Canadians waiting for a family doctor, why not put that money that you're spending on it, well over $6 billion, into social programs instead?
That's a good question.
We're making a number of investments, frankly, in the areas that you mentioned. That work hasn't stopped, and it continues to be a focus to make sure that Canadians
But with
have the
respect, wouldn't
support
$6 billion
and the
go a long
services
way
that
to
they
either
need.
one of those? With respect, $6 billion would do a lot of work in those, wouldn't it?
You know what? With respect, when I talk to Canadians, they tell me about their struggles. I hear it
Who is this guy? I like him personally. I like him.
every day. And the measures that we are putting forward, these two measures, both the HST holiday to get through expensive times through the winter, through the holiday season, and a targeted working Canadians benefit for folks making $150,000. This is coming at a time that they need it, and there's no time like the present to be investing in Canadians.
Okay, on that food program, the initial goal was to reach 400,000 kids.
Yeah, like $6.3 billion ain't chump change. You know, those who are upset about certain support going overseas, that's like twice the amount we sent.
Per year. So far, you're at half that goal. What are you doing to try and get more provinces on board?
Rolling up our sleeves, working with the provinces each and every day that have not yet signed on to get them across the finish line.
That's what I mean, right? Is they want to take our money and manage things for us, right? They want you to pay for everybody so they can facilitate every aspect of your life.
To ensure that this school year, we are seeing more food delivered within schools.
One of the things you were talking about those other programs as well was how targeted they need to be. That's one of the criticisms, though, of this school food program, that it isn't targeted to give food to kids, that it will, unfortunately, give food to kids who don't necessarily need it. Is there a better way to help more kids that really need it instead of providing food to such a wide swath of kids to maybe some who don't really need it?
Well, frankly, if there is any child at a school that self-identifies as being hungry.
It's Mike Lecoutier. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is his name. He hosts Power Play on Fridays when Vassy is off, preparing for question period on Sunday. Okay, yeah, because I've seen him a few times and never really knew what his name was. This is the first time I'm like, wow, it's like I'm impressed with him. Other times I've seen him, he just seemed like a basic ass reporter, you know, like.
I think it's money well spent and an investment worth making.
Okay, we're going to leave it on that. Minister of Families, Children, and Social.
That's it for that. Yeah, so that's just it, right? Like, I feel like the more centralized this kind of stuff becomes, like school lunch programs, like the more the government is giving out to the people, ultimately the more power they're going to have. And that's something I feel like me and Saul have this argument a lot, because he doesn't agree with me on it, because he thinks he just has a lot of good faith. And then to me, I look at these politicians as people who want to exploit you. They want to use you, that you are nothing more than kind of a number or a product in a sense to them. And that's the feeling I get from the Liberals. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Conservatives are completely exempt from that. I just think the Conservatives, or at least Polyev, has morals and is sensible enough to understand you know, not to bite the hand that feeds you. And ultimately, we are the hand that feeds these politicians, right? And I think that's what we need to remember. Hey, Luca, how's it going, buddy? Nice. Welcome back.
Development.
But yeah, we're going to get to the next one here. So just a bit of another CBC video, which I thought was really good because it doesn't make the Trudeau government look very good. And that's the thing, is Canada's isn't. And that's why I feel like we're not having foreign investment. And this is like, watch, he explains it better than me. Yeah, well, this guy, I don't know. I like Andrew Chang personally. I don't think he's a propagandist. Like, this doesn't make the Liberal government look good. Like, you guys gotta watch this video. It actually it's pretty funny, because they're basically giving Donald Trump a bit of a bone here, saying what he's doing. Because really, what Donald Trump's win did stimulate the economy. Him winning stimulated the economy. Like, think about that. Just because of what he is saying he's going to do 7%. He's saying 40%. So that's what I mean, is how is this making the Liberal government look good, right? They're in charge of this horrible economic state that they're just pretending isn't theirs. They're also getting way better rates, right? Because if a whole corporation, why you see like multiple grocery chains under one umbrella organization is so they can get better supplier rates, right? Like it's part of it, right? So like the more one customer orders overall, the better rates they're going to get on everything. Milk, meat, all of it. Like meat, I think is a little bit different, but milk, I know for sure. And dry groceries, like if you're ordering 10 pallets versus 1 pallet, you're going to get a better rate than the guy who ordered 1 pallet, right? So that's the advantage. And corporations overall have another warehouse. So they order in huge amounts to a centralized warehouse that distributes to all their locations, right? So by doing that, they're getting a way better rate than your mom and pop shop on anything. 2007 is when the Canadian dollar was at its lowest, $1 per 61 USD. Yeah, well, wasn't that also to do, like, did that all have to do with the 2008 economic crisis that happened right after? Like, and Harper was Hallmark movies happening in BC now, guys.
More travelers, more film crew.
My wife watches them, and they've got like these washed up teenage heartthrobs on them, and it's so funny because they'll be in like one I was watching, they were like literally in our hometown, and I was like, what? That's the pool we went to all the time growing up. What? Like it was crazy to see, and I was like, these like, I guess like they might have been like bigger celebrities when I was younger, but now they're just kind of like on Hallmark movies. It's kind of funny. I never thought about that. Just everything. If you have American money, Canada looks pretty nice just to like vacation and not invest in, but to go visit, right? It's like how we used to look at, or how we look at Mexico, right?
Is what it says.
Yeah, like Rob shared. Oh, whoops, sorry guys. Rob shared something in the Discord about that.
The strength.
I was gonna play the link you sent me, Rob. Though I don't think I can play it on stream. But I was gonna look in to see if anyone else was covering it, and I looked at Rebel News. I couldn't find anything yet. Let me know, because I know I can play their videos and stuff because they're considered news. So any independent news outlets that are considered news, I can play on stream, no issues. And we just give them credit. Make sure you guys know where to find them if you like that. I'm pretty sure everyone here knows who Rebel News is, though. But I like playing their stuff too within my lists, just to show that we are, to kind of give that independent media perspective as well.
Of the Canadian dollar has slipped to its lowest level in 5 years. The slow decline started in late spring of 2021. At that time, it hovered around 80 cents US. Today, it sits just above 70. And since the re-election of Donald Trump earlier this month, the U.S. dollar has gained ground on currency of almost every industrialized nation in the world. To discuss the impact a weak loonie will have on the Canadian economy, let's bring in Earl Davis in Toronto. Earl is the head of fixed income and money markets at BMO Global
Okay, we
Asset
saw him
Management.
on the other one. I think we can just skip through this then. I don't think it's going to give us much more. So, yeah, we're going to...
President-elect Trump's decisive victory in the U.S.
This is a Global News' coverage on the same subject.
And the Republican sweep of Congress boosted stock markets, cryptocurrency, and the U.S. dollar. Call it the Trump bump.
Donald Trump's policies tend to be a little more pro-growth.
The Trump bump.
Oriented, or a little more stimulus is coming down the pipe, especially in the form of tax cuts, and even planned deportations in the U.S. could put some upward pressure on wages.
Many of Trump's election promises, slapping sizable tariffs on everything coming into the U.S. and mass deportations, mean higher inflation, which will require higher interest rates. That's propped up the greenback against many currencies, including our loonie. And economists expect that to continue to fuel food inflation. There's also a seasonal aspect to it.
Food costs will tend to rise a little faster towards the end of the year, especially ahead of the holiday season, because people tend to eat more at that time. They celebrate more, certainly, with friends and family.
And this time of year, we import more fresh food as Canada produces less. A weaker dollar means that will cost more.
Grocery prices, we know, have outpaced headline inflation.
There are things you can do to manage your grocery bill. Personal finance expert Rubina Ahmed-Haq recommends meal planning and taking...
Oh, I hate when they do that. They treat us like we're children and we can't do this ourselves. Like, really? Maybe you're not just managing yourself effectively enough. It's like maybe you've just tanked the economy to such a horrible state where people who make 6 figures have to have a meal plan because they can't figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
stock of what you have.
And then people who make like 50K a year can't even feed themselves. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Then creating a shopping list. Cutting down on food waste is key.
When you throw things out, that is really throwing money in the garbage.
Another tip for managing
eat garbage, guy. Yeah, so bad food, no, you should eat it. That's what she's basically saying.
food inflation that's likely to continue. Use apps and flyers to comparison shop.
Just so patronizing. It boils my blood when Christopher Freeland says, maybe you should cancel Disney Plus. It's like, maybe you should do your freaking job or resign. You know what I mean? Like, why do Canadians have to pick and choose between something so trivial in such a small purchase? They shouldn't have to. We're a wealthy country. We're part of Western stuff. We're part of all these, like, you like saying we're part of the G7, we're part of the G20. We're one of the only G7 countries that does it. It's like, well, we don't feel like we are. We're not living like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
And consider where you shop.
If there is a discount grocery store in your neighborhood, consider shopping there first before going to the one.
Like, do you hear this lady? Like, do you think she's going to a budget grocery store? Do you think she's picking I bet you anything she goes to Whole Foods that's attached to her Vancouver condo. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think these people understand how it is. They just think, well, I have to manage my finances. But it's like, yeah, you do, but you make probably a lot more than the average Canadian. You know what I mean? Like, the average Canadian doesn't want to eat mac and cheese and Chef Boyardee ravioli for dinner every night. They want to have a meal. And like, yeah, that requires getting fresh food, which used to not be that crazy expensive. It used to be like the dry goods and the prepared stuff that was more expensive. And like your fresh foods were like, you know, the idea was is you'd spend more money and have less work. Now it's like you just spend more money to eat real food. You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
That has the more bells and whistles, but is more expensive.
Anne Gaviola, Global News.
Yeah, I don't even think none of them were covering what's going on in Montreal right now. I'm trying to find stuff even on YouTube, period, about it. That's not like completely glazing, something that's more in depth, and I can't find anything. If you find anything on YouTube that's not super intense, let me know, put it in the Discord. I'll play it. Rob did share a link on it and was talking in the Discord, I believe. It's just I don't think I can play that clip that's in there from barenakedislam.com. You guys can go there and check it out if you're in the Discord. Rob put a link to it.
Let the bankers worry about the economy. We're focused on building opportunities for kids in a fundamental way, being there to support families, because an economy works when families are confident about the future. That's why we continue to grow the economy from the bottom up, from the middle out.
You know what, guys? I like cream corn, okay? Maybe I'm weird. I really like cream corn. It tastes delicious to me.
It's a tiny 2-month tax trick to distract from Trudeau's plan to quadruple the carbon tax on heat and housing, food and fuel. That will cost thousands of dollars to every...
Mr. Sunshine Baby and the pleb showed it. That same video that Rob sent, I'm going to find something on it. We'll just do it after the main topic, though, guys. We're almost done all the main stuff here.
Single family.
That was Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre today talking about the federal government's proposed GST holiday. Now, as you also heard from the Prime Minister there, it's all about affordability, and it'll apply to a long list of consumer goods. On top of that, more than 18 million Canadians will get a rebate check next spring, but it comes with a hefty price tag. The total cost would be $6.3 billion. Now, the GST cut is going to cost $1.6 billion, and then those 200...
The mainstream media actually is covering it, Rob, now. Just in the last... Since I started the stream, they put out a bunch of stuff, actually. So we'll segue into that after this.
$50 checks to every worker who made less than $150,000 in 2023. Well, that's going to cost $4.7 billion. This is a major policy shift for this Liberal government, who has previously advocated for targeted relief and spoken out against rebate checks. So is this good policy or just pure politics? Let's bring in the front bench. Sabrina Grover was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's senior advisor at Spark Advocacy and North Star Public Affairs. Melanie Paradis is a former communications director to Aaron O'Toole. She's now the president of Texture Communications.
Oh, this is like the most plain-ass panel.
Former Ontario NDP MPP Gurritan
Yeah,
Singh
we're
is now
gonna
Vice
we're gonna
President.
skip past this panel, guys. This is a weak panel.
New affordability measures meant to bring relief to Canadians quickened the pulse of politics this week. The Liberals are promising a temporary tax holiday for the holidays and $250 for millions of working Canadians coming this spring.
This is about making sure that people can afford to give their kids and give their families the best possible options.
What we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick.
The Liberals have shown that when they need billions of dollars in order to literally buy votes, they find it.
We fought for this. We said this is important, and the Liberals informed us that they had caved to our demands.
Oh,
but they
jeez.
included a Liberal letdown. This is temporary, and it doesn't include the monthly bills.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says his party will support the legislation, but to do that, they'll have to stop the debate currently grinding the House of Commons to a halt. It's time to bring in our party insiders. Melanie Richer is a former communications director for the NDP. Here with me, Greg McEachran is a former Liberal ministerial staffer, and Fred Delory is a former Conservative campaign manager.
Yeah, these guys, this is a better panel because these guys have actually worked with a lot of these politicians. Whereas the other panel, I just felt like you guys are just analysts. Like you just have analysts with giant glasses.
Hi guys, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Thanks for coming in. So Greg, I'll start with you on this one. As you will remember, when...
Yeah, so CBC actually is the only news organization in the mainstream cycle to report on it, ironically. They're calling it an anti-NATO, pro-Palestinian protest. But we're going to play that clip after. And then I had a treat saved for last. The one thing everyone wants to talk about is Trudeau going to Taylor Swift. We're going to talk about that last. But we're going to do this, the last panel of the main topic today. Then we'll get into the requested topic, which is the Montreal stuff that's going on. Rob had sent some stuff in the Discord. I'll try and find more on it as well. That's not just CBC, but like there's no other news organizations playing on it.
Erin O'Toole pitched a GST holiday in the last election campaign. The Liberals kind of dismissed it as a bit of a gimmick. They kind of, said it's a political trick that's useless, not going to really help very many people. And now we're kind of seeing some of the similar rhetoric that he used, some of the things that he said when he was pitching this policy coming out of the mouth of the Prime Minister. Why do you think that there's been this about face? Why are they kind of pushing this sort of policy now, do you think?
Wait, JP, that means that the leader of the Conservatives who just dissed this announcement ran under that one. That my good friend Fred helped
3 years ago, it was a good idea.
So, you know what, JP, up is down, cats and dogs living together. It's a strange time in politics. So, I'm a Chrétien Martin liberal. I was speaking to someone earlier just before the panel from that era. And, I've said this before. I believe in balanced budgets. I believe in respecting the public purse, but I also believe in taking care of people. But there is a bit of an issue here, I think, for the Liberals, where they've gotten to the point where if you can't beat them, join them. And, I'm finding I want to be consistent. For example, I criticize Scott Moe's
I think it's more of my way or the highway.
$500 check from 2 years ago. At the time, inflation was about 7%. And that $500 went to everybody in Saskatchewan over the age of 18. Didn't matter how much money they made. And similar, Doug Ford has announced a $200 one. And I'm not, the first thing about this, about the Prime Minister's Day yesterday, I didn't love the 251, but I also, I'm smart enough to, I hope, to pay attention to current politics and that they need to try something. And at least there are some measures that limit it. On the GST thing, look, I'm going to, again, separate my kind of business brain from my political brain, and I watched the National last night. The first 7 or 8 minutes were on this. The competing network that has a news program on, same thing around the same time. The streeters are amazing on this. The people that are asked, they seem to really like it. An old trick we used to say, how did your day go? Watch the news without the sound on. The visuals are amazing. And then the last thing I'll say is, on social media, people that I went to high school, university with, that I don't think of as particularly political, they seem to love this.
Yeah, Fred, I mean, the story we did on this issue yesterday got more than 1 million clicks. Like, there is a tremendous amount of interest, probably the most read story of the year, or at least up there. Obviously, a lot of people excited or wanting to know more or kind of dialed into this issue. Do you think that the Liberals have captured the zeitgeist a bit, the populist zeitgeist with doing something like this, or is it just a political trick that they're just trying to buy votes? Like, where do you fall on this?
It's 100% a trick. Like, this was a good idea 3 years ago when the cost of
I like this guy.
The cost of living crisis began. We've been in this for 3 years, and the Liberals have not been doing anything on this to help Canadians. They're coming here last minute with this idea. The NDP came up with it last week, and all of a sudden they're coming through with this now. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem real.
Okay. Oh, whoops. Never mind.
There's the issue too. It's coming into effect, if it gets through everything, December 14th, 10 days before Christmas, not the holiday season. This is going, like, shopping, will people delay until then? And if this doesn't become law, then what happens if this doesn't get through? There's so many issues with this. And then at the end of the day, this is just for 2 months. This is a little break right now that they're throwing in 3 years into an affordability crisis. They're putting this little thing out there. And again, it is helpful. I always love tax cuts. Love to see more cuts across the board on taxes. It goes back up.
Yeah, no worries, Luca. Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Up in mid-February, and then 6 weeks after that, the carbon tax increase of 19% kicks in again, which is permanent and on everything. So this is
the check is April 1st, though, the one that was announced.
Sure,
They'll get a rebate.
The tax goes back up in February.
But just
14th.
including everything that was
sure,
announced.
the 250. Like, it's and when you talk about Moe and Ford, like, these guys have been like cutting taxes in their provinces and trying to and fighting against the federal carbon tax.
Yeah.
It's apples and oranges here, where these guys are being consistent with what they're trying to do. This seems like Trudeau showing up. You know, he's trying to make waves right now. What the Conservatives want to do is raise the tide for everybody, and that's where their program.
I thought Pierre Poilievre's perspective on this was interesting yesterday, only because he kind of slammed it and said, you know, we're going to have to deal with the carbon tax, some of the things that you're saying. They're going to have to deal with cost of housing, things have gone up, yada, yada. This is not necessarily going to help. But when pressed by reporters whether he'd actually support it, he wouldn't say. He said he wants to see what is actually put before them when the Liberals table this legislation. So he was kind of talking it down, but not necessarily against it. I mean, how do you square that one?
Look, we always like tax cuts, but the issue is we don't quite know what this is going to look like. They put out these random products in there, like this is going to cut this, but not this. And again, like Christmas trees was a part of it, which is mostly a cash business. But December 4th.
That's actually a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah, if you're buying a real tree, yeah, you're probably paying cash or the proceeds are going to something, right? Like, I never actually really thought about that, right? Because I don't buy, like, we've never bought a real tree before. I just have paranoid family members who are worried about fire hazards, so we don't buy real trees. If it was my way, I'd buy a real tree. I feel like it'd be cool. It smells nice and everything. But anyways.
But December 14th, like 10 days before Christmas, is when these are supposed to come in. This feels like it was written on the back of a napkin over the weekend after they read what the NDP
That's a good way of putting it.
did last week.
Yeah, I mean, I just bought a freaking Christmas tree, and I missed out. I mean, I like to put mine up early. I think December 14th or 15th is like a little late for me in the season, Val. I don't know. What do you think? Is this a good piece of public policy?
I think statistically speaking, it's the last week of November, most people start putting up Christmas decorations, and usually everybody's got them up by the 1st of December.
Or is it a populist trick?
Right. So maybe I'll say I think it's maybe a little bit of the trick on behalf of the Liberals, but I do think it's good policy if they would have followed what the NDP had said that they wanted to do if they were elected. What I find particularly
it's basically like, to me, this is like discounted lumps of coal. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what it is. Like, it's not an Saul called it a stimulus package, but like the more I look into this, like I thought there was more stuff being included in there. But it's some foods, some alcoholic drinks, some toys, some video games. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a blanket, right? And that's why it just seems like a big trick. It's an empty gesture.
really funny, or maybe that I want.
It's like a Tim card that says, here's $5 Tim card, but really there's only 3 something on it because someone already bought a coffee on it. Or even less than that now. It's like, what, $2 left? You can't even buy coffee with it.
To point out is since March 2022, every single one that the Liberal government has put forward, or every single policy measure that they've brought forward, to make people's lives better is directly because of the NDP. They haven't done one
And it hasn't done anything but bring up deficits, thus making people's lives worse in the long run.
thing, including, what they announced this week that wasn't pushed by the NDP, that wasn't proposed by the NDP, that wasn't, put on the table by the NDP. So if I'm the NDP and I'm getting ready to go talk to folks or to go continue to talk to folks on the doorstep in the lead up to the next election, my message should be clear. And it is, why do you have measures with this government? We've proven to you the last 2.5 years that we govern in the interests of people and we put people first and we make people's lives better. So count on us. So I really liked the announcement that Jagmeet put forward last week that he said he was going to do if he was prime minister. I think this is a bit of a watered down version. The fact that it's, temporary doesn't totally help, and the fact that bills aren't included. And I don't think home heating is either. So those things I think would have made a bigger difference in people's lives, particularly as we're going through, winter seasons, and those home heating bills are quite expensive. But again, I liked it when Jagmeet said it last week. I think people are really having a hard time, and we need to show them that we hear them. So I think that's what we saw.
Yeah, but this isn't the way to do it. This is just showing people you're nothing but empty gestures. Like, it's not like, I thought when I first heard about this, I thought they were removing the GST on everything for like a month or two. Like, that's what he was selling it like. Now it's not. It's on specific things, specific items. You have to essentially, it's meant for like parties and Christmas shopping. That's about it. But even with the toys, like, not all toys are included. It's just specific kinds of toys. Not to mention the provinces have to be on board with this, right? Like, from what I understand, it's not like they can just implement it overnight. Like, it's a whole thing.
Say do this week, but all, I think, credit to the NDP. And not to the minister on this.
It is uncanny that like Jagmeet comes up with an idea and then the Liberals have it the next day. I don't know if it's like the NDP are getting some intel from the Liberals and then rushing out to say we are doing this, and then they can claim credit for it after, or if the Liberals are just picking up on good ideas. I don't really know. But there was a school food program and now this, and there is some sort of linkage there. Greg, now we're just talking about making this permanent. There's probably a reason why the government didn't go the permanent route, because it's hugely expensive, right? I mean, I think it was like $6.5 billion for what they were proposing.
6.3
to make it permanent forever. But this program that the Liberals are proposing, the checks and the GST, HST cut, is about $6.5 billion for a one-time thing. I mean, we're probably on pace for Chrystia Freeland to blow well past, right, her fiscal anchors at this point. I mean, she said they would keep the deficit to $40 billion for this fiscal year. The parliamentary budget officer has said they're well past that already. You pile on a few more billion with this thing. Has the government just abandoned fiscal prudence at this point? Do you think that they've just given up any hope of getting
That's
back?
what I mean. It's like, at least this is CBC guys saying, has the government just abandoned financial prudence? It's like, at least they're asking these questions, right? Like, this guy, the guy who looks like the taxi driver from Deadpool, like, he's pretty good.
To a balanced budget, of actually sticking to their guardrails, of trying to keep the credit rating that we have now with lower spending?
So it's interesting that when Doug Ford had a pretty massive increase, he's got the largest cabinet, everything, and I'm not trying to do the squirrel and point over there, but it's, he is able to be politically successful with these, and you don't see a lot of people criticizing. I was on a radio panel this week with a conservative who, like, in the same breath was telling Liberals to increase the percentage of GDP. It's 1.37 to go up to 2, but in the same breath talking about affordability. And where do Canadians want us to spend? A couple of things. I think Aaron O'Toole's announcement was for
the Great Dominion in the chat. The governments of PEI and New Brunswick have asked the feds to cover revenue losses that will be incurred by foregoing HST charges during the period in question. And this is what I'm saying is, like, it's not going to be like, even the provinces aren't going to be happy with this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous.
Month of December, I think, and this is for 3 months. And I've seen some pushback from the CFIB on this. In my experience, the closer to Christmas, the better the deals. You're making a risk over.
Yeah, they could have just done it on heating. You know what I mean? But I think the problem is that would probably have been more money lost than this, right?
You're going to have less selection, but you may have better deals. So that may work out for you. But Andrew Bevan, who's the Liberal campaign director, sent me a really interesting ad before I came on air from a major retailer that said, if you buy now and you come back after December 14th, 15th, whatever it is, with your receipt, we will give you the difference. The other thing I would say, and as someone who used to manage a fairly large office, people are really pushed at Christmas. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of spending. And you see a lot of organizations, especially in the service industry, do their Christmas celebrations in January. And people have probably spent a lot of money. This goes on through January and February. We hear a lot from food banks that that's a really tough time for them as well in January. So the anecdotal information would be, or suggestion would be, that in January and February, people also need a little bit of help, especially after Christmas. So I think that may have something to do with the timing.
You danced around that deficit question, though. Do you think that they've blown past?
It's scary. It's scary as hell. And again, the Chrétien Martin era Liberal, like, that was one of the things that they mentioned to me was the guardrails. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Fred, the national debt, $1.4 trillion. It's about $54 billion a year to service that debt. They're piling on more spending, although we are in a good fiscal position relative, I guess, to other G7 countries, right? We're certainly better off than the United States is, although they're kind of the reserve currency for the world, so it's a different circumstance. But when you look at more spending, I was even speaking to the new Liberal Premier of New Brunswick earlier, and she said she's worried about the fiscal capacity of the federal government because they keep piling on more and more and more. Are you worried?
Absolutely. Justin Trudeau in his prime ministership has doubled the national debt.
Yeah.
Every prime minister
in 9 years.
From 1867 until Stephen Harper contributed an X amount to the debt. He doubled that.
That's what I mean, right? Is like, this is what me and my friend were talking about earlier. Is like, he is by far the worst prime minister. And he's saying since 1867. Me and my friend were saying in the last 100 years. So it's just crazy to think about.
You say the pandemic, though, please.
Of course, the pandemic. Of course,
there was unique circumstances.
But there's these random things. He just came out with the $6 billion thing that I think they wrote on a napkin this weekend. These guys spend money. He did it in 2015 when he ran. He said, we can have $10 billion deficits. Yes, the pandemic was obviously a big expense, but he hasn't stopped since then. They keep throwing out these different programs, the dental care, the pharmacare, all these things they're doing. And we're talking about a fiscal anchor. They're using these words, but it doesn't seem to mean anything. And I think Canada, and I think that's where Pierre Poilievre is running on fix the budget. I don't know how he's going to do that. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be an immense, immense challenge. And we're going.
Yeah, it's not even a matter of he wants to. It's can he? Can anyone?
Going down a dangerous road fiscally here in this country, the way we're just blowing money out the door.
The government would argue, well, people really need help right now, that there is this affordability crunch.
Yeah, because they're blowing money out the door. And this is the problem, is it's a short-term solution. How do they not they have to know this. They know it. They just don't care.
It's better for us to take on that spending and that debt as opposed to putting it on the backs
of Beaver Dam, we're actually getting to that right after this.
Of Canadians. Do you buy what they're selling?
Well, after the Montreal thing, after this.
Well, look, if there's certain programs that work, but there's all these programs that they're building that don't impact people's affordability, the affordability crisis, the dental care and pharmacare, first right off the bat. There's so much of that it does elevate certain people that need it, but it's a small chunk of the population that's benefiting from it. Again, as I said earlier, they're making waves with these announcements, but they're not rising the tide of all Canadians.
Greg, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm going to throw to Mel because Mel's better on the dental care than I am.
Mel, I was interested to hear from NDP MP Blake Desjardins yesterday or the day before, and he was saying that it's not necessarily a given that he's going to vote against the fall economic statement, that their party is going to vote against the Fez. We also heard from NDP MP Don Davies, who was saying, well, the election's still a year away. So there was a lot of rhetoric this week that really struck me that suggests the NDP are around for the...
Someone let us, I can't remember who it was, but they let it slip that there's going to be a springtime election. It was like a Liberal MP, I feel like. And I feel like it makes a lot of sense that that's going to happen, because whether or not they want it to, because Jagmeet gets his pension in February. Whether or not Saul believes that's a big thing, I think it does. I think Jagmeet is really that much of an idiot that he is waiting for his pension before he does anything, because he knows he's going to probably end up losing his seat, or his party's going to lose a lot of seats. This is ridiculous. It's just...
longer haul, or at least the medium-term haul, I guess you could say. Is it because they're pitching policies like this, the Liberal government has kind of brought the NDP back.
We also have the Liberal ads that have recently come out that are clearly campaign ads. Like, everyone's ramping up for election, whether or not they want it.
Back into the fold, because it seems like they're not going anywhere right now.
I don't know that it's that the government has brought them back into the fold. I think that there's some important things that the NDP is going to make sure that the government delivers on before they walk away. Just to go back to the dental care and pharmacare. I don't know if you've been to the dentist recently, but it is really expensive when you go to the dentist. So when you talk about, you know, the difference between getting your teeth checked or, you know, putting food on the table, that makes a massive difference in people's lives. So I just want to make sure to correct the record on dental care and pharmacare is an affordability measure that makes people's lives less expensive, particularly for folks who have diabetes as well. But on the same pharmacare subject, that is one thing I think that the NDP is really waiting to see how those conversations with the provinces go. It was disappointing to see, I think it was last week, there was a story about how some of the premiers had said that the Prime Minister and the Health Minister hadn't started those conversations about that kind of pharmacare, the birth control, the diabetes with the provinces, and even provinces who typically say, you know, stay out of my backyard or give us the money, we're not interested, are open to having that conversation. So hopefully the government starts moving on that and can start moving on that quickly in the new year. And I just, if you don't mind, JP, me going back to a question earlier about, you know, how expensive these things are, I think fiscal prudence is really important, but it is about making choices. And one of the things that I like about what the NDP has put forward with this, that the Liberals aren't, is they have made it super clear what their choices are going to be. And while they may be losing revenue with exempting, you know, home heating, et cetera, from GST, they've made it super clear where they're going to go get that extra revenue. And that's something that the Liberals aren't willing to do. So it is about choice.
I just hate when people act like people's poor financial situations are due to their management of their finances. Like, there's a small handful, sure, with gambling problems and other things, but majority of people struggling nowadays are not in that category. They just can't make enough because their rent is almost is an entire paycheck now. Not just, you know, half a paycheck. It's like it's half of what they earn or more. And then they're like literally going to eating discount food constantly because they just don't have money otherwise. Like, and what, they're at fault because they want to buy a 6-pack of beer and they can't? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm talking about. It's like they act like, well, they just shouldn't buy that coffee. It's like, well, no, people should be allowed to have a little bit of wiggle room, just a tiny bit. When people have none and they can't even meet like the basics, there's a huge problem, especially if they're working citizens, if they're working, period. You know, if they're working a minimum wage job, minimum wage was set to guarantee basic living capabilities. It doesn't secure that anymore, even when it's $17 in some provinces. It's just crazy.
Choices, it is important to be prudent fiscally, but when you look at what folks are talking about, the Liberals, we've seen what they've said. The Conservatives, to, you know, Fred's point, we don't know what they're going to cut, and that can be pretty worrisome for a lot of folks. And then we've got the NDP saying, here's what we're going to do to make your life better. But
yeah, spend more money.
We're not going to continue to let these guys
anyways, we're done with this panel.
Get away with subsidies, etc. So I think that's pretty important to act.
The NDP does have a plan to pay for it. I think it includes raising corporate taxes, right, and going after the wealthy. Maybe not.
Yeah, just like Mao's China, right?
The best idea, though, as Donald Trump contemplates
get rid of the landowners. They're the problem, right?
Cutting the corporate tax rate to 15% in the United States, you might have some businesses up and leave. But yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not even Disney Plus. Like, it's so funny that that's a thing because Disney Plus is like cheaper than Netflix. Like, Netflix is the most expensive one, honestly. But I got like a package through my phone provider that allows me to have like, it's got like 3 streaming things in one package for like a super stupidly cheap price, and it's just lumped in with my phone bill, and I'm paying like half what I was for Disney Plus. So for those of you who don't know, if you're with certain phone providers, check what deals you got there for streaming services. First off, I'll say that. But at the end of the day, is it really the $20 a month that's preventing you from feeding and putting food on the table? Is, you know what I mean? Like, guaranteed, obviously that $20 a month is going towards food if you need it, but is it really Disney Plus that's making people have problems? Like, it's just so condescending.
I mean, I guess they actually have a plan, right? They actually have detailed something that they will do to pay for their larger social welfare state. A Liberal MP stepped...
Yeah, anyways, we're going to go to the next video here. Yeah, but that's the thing. They're creating this larger social welfare state. Like, they're moving all the support to the government, right? Everything's going to be facilitated through them. They want to be the hand that feeds you, not you being the hand that feeds them, right? That's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to turn the tables, right? But anyways, that's enough with Trudeau's announcement for today, and the GST cut. I think I'm done with that topic now. And the school lunch program announcement was tied into the GST cuts, because it's also another large deficit that's estimated at like what 108 million at this point. So it's just like, you know, and that was just one province. Like, it's just this whole thing, just where the money is going. It's like I can't keep track of how much money is just being spent, whether it's to feed children or I don't care what the cause is. Just stop spending the money. Like, stop spending the money. Like, just stop it. Like, it's like, just don't get it. Like, how did they not see it? Anyways, we're going to get into this next story now as per viewer request. Yeah, it's a CBC video, unfortunately. If you guys can find me one that's more tame, that doesn't have, like, I think there was one I saw that was on that Rob shared in the Discord. I briefly glanced over it. I don't know if I can fully play that on stream. If that video has been played on another streamer's channel, let me know. I'll play that specific video and we'll just test the waters there. But we're going to touch up on this story because I do think it's important. And I'm curious exactly what happened at this protest. And I know most people wanted more than just 3 people arrested. So people are kind of shocked only 3 people were arrested here. But again, this is a global conflict bleeding into our society and culture.
Well, police in Quebec made 3 arrests at a pro-Palestinian and anti-NATO protest in Montreal. The demonstration took place while the city hosts the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Linda Ward has the latest.
We know these are pro-Palestinian protesters acting in solidarity with those in Gaza.
Yeah, Drew, I think that was mentioned before. You have to be you have to meet a certain tax threshold. I think you have to make like 36K out of the year and be paying taxes, right? Because it's like a rebate more than a gift. So if you're not paying into those already, you're not going to get any of the benefit, except for at the till, it's going to save you money. But don't get me wrong, it's going to save you money on chips, pop, liquor, all the good stuff for you, right? Like, that's what they're going to be saving money on.
Acting against NATO, mainly students. A number of protest groups have been named in this. NATO, they say in interviews that they've been doing from the crowd there, they say is complicit in supporting Israel's war on Gaza. This as 300 delegates from NATO countries are in Montreal for meetings for the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. That's
what I mean. It's like, this is Canada, guys. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy.
Protest last night, though, turned violent quite quickly. Montreal police say demonstrators were throwing objects at police.
Like, look at this. Peaceful country, right? Peaceful country. You know, that's the thing, is like, say what you want, but do you guys remember the trucker convoy ever being like this? Like, situations like this? Like, there was some, like, in broad daylight with the horse and the lady and stuff. There were some crazy situations, but just this posturing, was that there and justified like it is in this situation? You know, it's just, this is crazy. It's like, why aren't they freezing their bank accounts? You know what I mean? Like, it's just wild.
Lighting vehicles on fire, breaking windows around 4:30 p.m. We have a map we can show you just how they started moving through the streets.
Yeah, and that's why some new people are hesitant to report on this stuff, because they don't want to publicize these movements as much. But I think it doesn't do anyone justice, because people need to know what's going on. People need to know that their country is in kind of a not the best state right now.
Of Montreal, the crowd gathering at Place Émilie Gamelin. Around 5 o'clock, the group met another demonstration near Place des Arts, and then around 6 p.m. they began.
Yeah, the bouncy castles and Tim Hortons, and this is just like throwing objects like flags, yelling "Death to Canada." Like, where's the line? Like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you doing anything about this? And like, I was talking to a former police officer, and he says he thinks that the local police are scared of these people because a lot of them are immigrants from other countries. Most here are illegal. Like he was saying that there's a lot of people, like, allegedly coming here to visit with radical ideology and then just not going back. And they're participating in these protests. There was, you know what I mean? Like, and it's crazy. It's scary. It's like, if this gets out of hand, what scares me most about this situation is the government retaliation. They're going to use this as reasoning to control your life even more and restrict your freedoms in the name of your safety even more.
marching together. And this is when they say that they lit what appeared to be an effigy of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
They're burning effigy. Like, when did this happen? Like, did anyone burn an effigy of Trudeau at the trucker convoy? I don't think so.
Fire. We're throwing smoke bombs.
That we know of. I could see that. That'd be kind of funny if someone did it. But it's not funny. It's not funny, guys. Don't go burn an effigy of Trudeau.
Metal barriers were being torn down and thrown into the road. Fireworks were set off in the street. There were
Are any of these people even voting? Like, is anyone in this group even a voter? Like, why? I just don't get it, other than you want chaos. You want disorder. Or you're just so incompetent, it's beyond words, which I don't know what it is anymore, honestly.
smashing the windows of businesses as well as the windows of the Palais des Congrès, where the NATO meeting is taking place, the convention center there in Montreal. And police say that several police officers were assaulted during these protests. At about 6:40, they used what they call chemical irritants and other techniques to disperse the crowd. Vehicles were then lit on fire. About 7 o'clock, the whole crowd was dispersed, but that is when police said that they made 3 arrests, some for assaulting those police officers, as I mentioned, and others for allegedly obstructing police work.
Okay, so yeah, quite a violent protest, as you described, Linda, but this has been growing through the week?
Yeah, so there's been a number of protests and boycotts by students in Montreal over the last week. Thursday, Friday, really a number of protests at Concordia University, but we saw students coming from McGill and Dawson College gathering there for those protests as well. Pro-Israeli counter demonstrations as well on those campuses. Tensions have been high. We heard from Defense Minister Bill Blair, who was at the Halifax Security Forum, who said some activists in the crowd have gone too far.
Seems like this whole movement has gone a little too far, in my opinion.
Like lawful, peaceful protest. This was anarchy. It was an engagement in violence and hatred on display in the city of Montreal. I believe that lawful, peaceful protests can be co-opted by anarchists who have other agendas. Those agendas were quite.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get the full picture from CBC. I kind of anticipated that, but just to see what they're reporting on, like I said, like usually they're the last ones to report on this stuff. So what they're reporting is like the facts they're reporting, not the opinions. You know what I mean? I think have a lot of weight.
Apparent by the activities of that mob yesterday, and those behaviors are unacceptable, and we can condemn them, and in particularly the hatred and anti-Semitism that was on display in the strongest possible terms.
And a similar sentiment on social media from Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly as well. So we know that this protest...
So this is our Foreign Affairs Minister. She tweeted this on X. I thought everyone's home for blue skies. Those who spread hate and anti-Semitism, use violence, loot, and destroy property must be condemned and held accountable. Rioting is not peaceful protest and has no place in Montreal or anywhere in Canada. So I agree, but that's the problem with the trucker protests is they painted that as a riot at times when it wasn't, right? So now if they paint anything as a riot, no one's going to take them seriously. And this, to me, that was a riot. If people are throwing things, smashing things, breaking things, that's a riot. Like the Stanley Cup riots, like you guys remember that? Like that was a riot. You know what I mean? Like people are breaking stuff. Like it's like there's a weird, angry mob mentality. It's scary to see. That can happen in Canada with people from other countries or citizens. Like there's a lot of citizens mixed into those protests too, right? People who are born here who have been swept up by this ideology. It is terrifying.
The forum started yesterday, goes until Monday. So no doubt police in Montreal are going to be on high alert.
Yeah, so that's it for that. We'll see. Do they suggest anything else about this? There's nothing else about this topic out, I don't think, at this point, in terms of the mainstream cycle. But I will try and cover. We'll touch more up on it next stream on Monday. But now we're going to get into something everyone else wanted to see, which I thought was saving for last, which is Trudeau at a Taylor Swift concert that we have to mute because there's Taylor Swift music playing in the back. But you can see here Trudeau dancing. That is our leader dancing at a Taylor Swift concert. So yeah, that 19-second clip from CTV here. I just thought it was hilarious. We're gonna watch that one more time. So there's Trudeau, your fearless leader, dancing in a weird way. I don't understand this dance move. It's like he's got such like languid body movements. Like he moves around so feminine. Like he's ever watch like John Stamos salsa? I think that's what he's trying to do, but he just comes across as weird. Like it's just wild. But anyways, now we're gonna get into this 5-minute clip about Trudeau at Taylor Swift, and then that'll be it.
To go before Taylor Swift takes the stage for her last Eras Tour concert in Toronto.
Yeah, he's trying to be a cool parent in the divorce. That's a good one, actually.
Bringing to a close months of built-up anticipation, with fans across Canada and around the world streaming in to live out their wildest dreams at 6 sold-out nights in the city. Nivrita Ganguly is outside the Rogers Centre in downtown Toronto, where fans are already gathering. Niv, how's it looking out there?
Well, Amantlina, it's looking like it has been looking for the past 10 days, really. It is a sea of sequins, a sea of sparkles, lots of tassels.
It's so funny because I never thought I'd ever be reacting to something like this on stream, but because Trudeau went to a Taylor Swift concert, we are.
Unusual costumes as well, a lot of excitement. You can't really tell that we're nearly at the end of this here in Toronto, because it feels really that this is a way of life here now outside the Rogers Centre. I have a couple of fans here with me. I have Addie and I have Reed. They're already in their costumes, and yes, they are attending tonight. So it's the hottest ticket in town. It's the last show of 6 that we've had here. Okay, how excited are you for tonight?
We are so excited. We just can't believe this is happening. We've been waiting for this all year, and the day has finally come.
Tell me about your costumes. I have to know. I mean, I consider forward to tonight.
So high-profile people show up at her concerts all over the world. Did we see any Toronto?
The Prime Minister, Amantlina, that's right, Justin Trudeau was here last night.
Yeah, this is a puff piece about the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto, and they get to talk about Trudeau going to this concert.
In the front row, it would seem, based on some social media videos, with his family. And, we were thinking that this might be a possibility because he's been in town. We've been covering some very important announcements from the Liberals. We had the GST holiday that he announced earlier in the week. Yesterday, he announced a new investment into Ontario's national school food program. So there was a feeling that, the Prime Minister...
I just love how they're B-rolling this dance on a loop while they talk.
...is in town, and we all know Justin Trudeau is a Swiftie. In July of 2023, when the feeling was that Taylor Swift had snubbed Canada, we actually had Justin Trudeau tweeting at her, saying...
see you later, Autumn.
Please, could you make a stop here? Quoting some of her song lyrics, saying, don't make it another cruel summer. And last year, in fact, exactly a year ago, when she announced the tour dates in Toronto and Vancouver, he said, hey, we'll welcome you here, of course, and quoted a few more of her song lyrics. He's definitely a bona fide Swiftie, and it was fun. It was fun.
Bona fide Swiftie.
To see him participate here last night.
Yeah, and he's got some dance moves on him. Who knew? So we're closing out 2 straight weekends of Swift Mania in Toronto. What happens next?
Okay, well, that's it for that. So, yeah, Justin Trudeau went to Taylor Swift concert. It's like, why? Like, what is wrong with him? I don't understand. Like, I don't know. Like, you gotta know someone's gonna clip you doing those dance moves. I guess he maybe just doesn't care. He was just so used to being in the camera, he just doesn't care anymore. But I don't get it. Like, you come across, when you're trying to come across as progressive, you come across as weak. You know what I mean? You come across as just not very strong. Like, people get it's just, yeah, he's 53-year-old man, creepy. He seems more like the cringy dad at the barbecue trying out the new dance moves. You know what I mean? Like, look at him having a go. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what? Like, it's just, the whole thing is just, yeah, it's wild. I can't believe we're talking about this. Yeah, and it's like a reminder of this, like, elite society within our society. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, because, like, the fact that he is able to go sit, like, front bench at Taylor Swift, it's like, the king going and sitting front bench at the gladiator matches, or the performance happening, and this is me coming through as, my nerdiness of reading Game of Thrones, which is a great read, by the way, guys. If you like politics, like, Song of Ice and Fire book series is pretty good. It's disturbing at points, don't get me wrong, but there's some things in there that stuck with me a lot, good and bad, and I think it's a really good read if you like politics and you're a nerd like me. But anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in today. That's about everything for today. We'll be getting into some stuff on Monday. There's going to be some schedule changes incoming. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet. Unfortunately, I was hoping I'd have more of a plan nailed down, but I got thrown a bit of a curveball for next week. So I will be kind of giving you guys somewhat of a schedule if you're in the Discord, or some heads up on what it is. But at this point, Monday, I'm either going to be doing super early in the morning or late in the evening. Let me know what you guys think. I might put out a poll on the channel just asking people how they feel about it, if they'd be more likely to watch if it was super early or much later in the evening, because that's kind of unfortunately what I'm going to have to pick between. It's going to be a temporary measure just for a few weeks. However, come January, there will be a big announcement coming for this channel. I'm not going to get into details, but come January, there will be some big changes coming. But yeah, December is going to be a bit all over the place schedule wise, but I will be streaming Monday to Friday and Saturdays when I can, keeping that up. Just the time's going to be all over the place. Just a heads up there. But thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks to all you regulars and everyone in the Discord. Again, join the Discord if you're not. We continue to talk off stream in there. People are sharing things. Rob brought some stuff to my attention today by sharing links in there. You can't share links in YouTube chat. So if you're one of those persons who's trying to share links in the YouTube chat, it's not showing up for anybody, and you can share that in the Discord. But thanks again, everybody. You're all great. And yeah, I'll see you Monday. Have a good weekend. And enjoy the B-roll of Trudeau dancing and Taylor Swift.